Is not an alien force already among us?
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
From some other species, from another planet, outside in the universe.
Welcome to S4.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to S4, the official radio broadcast of Forest Moon Paranormal, with host Eric Cooper and our panel of enlightened minds. Coming to you live from FMP headquarters located in the heart of Skagit Valley, Washington, at the base of the majestic North Cascade Mountains. We will take you through a journey of exploration as we examine every aspect of the metaphysical. From spirits, UFOs, Bigfoot, and conspiracies, to grounding, protection, astral travel, and everything in between, leaving you with a better understanding and comprehension of the world around you, and the entities that inhabit it. Join us every Saturday night at midnight Pacific Standard Time on the Fringe FM and locally on KSVU 90.1. Remember to check out the Forest Moon Paranormal Facebook page and join in the discussion. Now sit back, open your mind, get ready, because this is S4.
Good evening or morning, depending where you are, and welcome to S4, the voice of Forest Moon Paranormal, coming to you live from the FMP headquarters in the beautiful mountains of Concrete, Washington. FMP is a highly active emergency response team for all aspects of the paranormal, from aggressive hauntings to alien interaction, Bigfoot and other cryptids, and everything in between is terrifying. S4 is the voice where we discuss these things in depth. You can find S4 on the Fringe FM every Saturday at midnight, where you can also find Lighting the Void with Joe Roop, Shift Happens with Cortana, and Dark Waters. We're also on terrestrial radio with KSVU 90.1 FM locally from 10 to 12 Saturdays, with our pre-recorded shows for our locals. So tonight, it's our November Roundtable, where our panel brings to the show 3 blind questions to ask the panel on anything from supernatural, paranormal, conspiracy, and every rare once in a while we hit political, but not very often. So tonight with us we have R. Keith Andrews, our FMP Alien Race Specialist, Cole Wigleitner, our FMP Lore and Culture Research Specialist and owner of Statement of Sound DJ Services, Megan Gehring, our FMP Security Detail and Astral Team, and our Missing Persons Team member, and Seth Kinsey of Dark 30 and our S4 Conspiracy Specialist, and Michael Hall of UFOI Team. So how's everyone doing tonight?
Very good.
Wonderful.
Outstanding.
Excellent.
It's already November. Can you guys believe that?
No.
Yeah, it's going by a little too fast.
We just look at the calendar and it tells us what we need to see. If it's written there, it must be real, right?
Right.
Of course, the neat part about that is that what we're aware of, from what we understand, there are at least 6 different calendars around the planet today. So Take your pick which day you want to call it.
Right. And which calendar would that be?
Well, I know that there is a different one that they use in China. They've got a different one in the Middle East. They have a different one in the literally in Jerusalem itself, from what we understand. Down in the Polynesian islands, they have another calendar they work with. You know.
Which one am I the youngest on?
Oh, that's a nice one. Use time like we do. Every 7 years, you're brand new.
Hey.
Well, every cell in the human body is replaced every 7 years. Therefore, every 7 years, you're born again.
We just have to make sure to figure out how to make that new cell much better every 7 years, rather than just getting older, you know?
Oddly enough, you already know. You just, it would be advisable to forget you don't know. Net result, you'll remember.
All right.
Okay.
So, just to let y'all know, Skype's already giving us issues tonight. So, if you drop, then we get you back in. But let's get right to it. It's been a very active month. Very active week, I must say. So who wants to start with the first question tonight?
Me.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, here you go. Eric, I know you know the history paranormally with my family and everything like that. The rest you don't. I'll explain that at another day. But for those of you, I want to know, do you think that spirits that constantly attack you can wear a person down to the point that they present with a terminal illness, or do you think it's just the illness would come regardless? I mean, do they really actually wear your immune system down?
Yes. How's that for a short answer?
I agree.
We presume you would like something a little more enlightening.
I'd like to know if you know any cases regarding that.
A little more in depth.
It boils down to this. When you're dealing with spirit, and when you're dealing with a spiritual attack, or ghostly encounter, if you will, every attack can weaken the soul's grip on the physical body. If it is not replenished, if the soul is not taken care of as well as the body, that weakening grip will let the mortal body start to decay. Net result, cancer, which is in every individual, say every mortal body has cancer. It's actually a cleanup mechanism. When the mortal body gets weak, that cancer or that illness will start to spread and start disassembling the body as a way of fighting off the attack. By the way, it can also be reversed the same way.
Well, in essence, it's weakening your energy to where it can take over or interfere with you, correct?
Correct.
Right. Anyone else got anything more to add?
I do, actually. Back a long time ago, like 10 years ago, when I was stationed down in Yuma, Arizona, I worked a case that was not FMP related. We had a client that ended up with stomach cancers. And after much research, we found out that the original owner of the house had stomach cancers. And that was ultimately the cause of death, was multiple stomach cancers. We, as a team, ended up correlating that the spirit activity in the house was manifesting repeat symptoms. So there, I have a question, kind of like, is this a residual effect of the paranormal with, a constant stomach pains, constantly? So it was really interesting to work, and I've seen a couple shows on TV where there's, different types of cancers that follow the presence of entities on the land or in the house that the new owners are experiencing, because the symptoms just keep repeating. So is it almost a side effect of residual? However, I do fully agree that spiritual attacks are nothing to be. Grounding and shielding are really important for individuals, because if you cannot fight that off, yes, your body will react. So therefore, I agree with Keith in saying this is absolutely, it's factual to me. However, can science back that up? I'm not sure. People might say, well, you were genetically predisposed. But environmental exposures have a lot to do with that predisposition factor. So that's my response.
That's why it'd be nice if we had Markham on the show, but Markham's working, so but Markham could actually give us a scientific answer on that.
Oh,
yeah,
awesome!
That's the neat thing with Markham is he's got both a scientific background and the mind that's open enough to cross correlate the information.
Right.
Gotcha.
All right, Megan, what's your first question?
Okay, so this is going to kind of be a really weird introduction to this question, because I'm going to ask a question and then I'm going to propose my theory after I get individual responses. Okay. So I work astrally, and I have been encountering these little shadow things that seem to be non-human, but they used to be human. Has anybody else encountered such a thing?
More often than we care to count.
Okay.
Now,
it's actually quite normal.
What's their origin? I mean, we know they used to be human.
So
what makes
that's
them...
my theory.
Right. If they used to be human, how come they're... Even though they were spirits, why would they be non-human now?
Okay. I'm going to pitch a theory. I'm just going to change it up and pitch a theory.
Okay.
Through meditation and astral review, I have stumbled across something that I am going to call a dark crossing. And I would love to pitch my idea and see if it is something that we can work on and collaborate with. Basically, a dark crossing is when a human spirit has passed, but is stuck in a purgatory state or earthbound. And that spirit, which is a human spirit, is either crossed into the light or, with my theory, darkly. And it is passed into the dark, and now it is a non-human, but it has human element, and that is what is so unique, because in astral I can read that differentiation, I guess. It was human to me, but it's not human anymore. And that is what I'm like, what are you? What is this? What do I call you? So it's something that was human, but is no longer human. So either in life they proverbially sold their soul to the devil and then were darkly crossed upon passing, or maybe when they were stuck in a purgatory earthbound state, something or someone crossed them to the dark side, and therefore there was a dark crossing. And now they are a entity that used to be human.
So comparing that to
in training.
Well, comparing that to a TV show, that would be kind of like, who remembers Ghost Whisperer? I can't remember the actress's name.
Yep.
Oh,
young lady.
Yes, with Jennifer Love Hewitt. Yes.
There you go.
Or,
so
wait,
if you look at
no,
Ghost,
what?
if you look at Ghost Whisperer, that would be the spirits that went down instead of up.
Yes. So can I call it a dark crossing and refer to it as a dark crossing? Because that is almost what it is.
Well, clearly you can.
Okay.
That said, there is another factor involved in all of this. When a soul chooses to manifest in the physical realm of Earth and chooses to take on a human corporeal existence, what you seem to be describing, because a soul does not have to come in as human, what you seem to be describing is when they cross over and they have already decided that they are going to come back the next time as a non-human entity, you will have human residual energy, but the transitory configuration is neither human nor something specifically other.
Okay. Okay. I see that, because I didn't think about that other element where they actually came back. I'm worried that they are almost trapped doing bidding of the dark side.
That's the intriguing misconception that humans have a lot of.
Yes.
Do not get me wrong. There are a number of spirits that are trapped here. However, the idea of selling your soul is kind of like you trying to sell your skin, but you're still able to move around.
So on that, Tripp's got a good question. So if someone won't let a loved one finish the journey they were meant to be on, the loved one is actually holding them back, i.e. purgatory?
Negative. That is the normal misconception. The reality is it doesn't matter what happens on this plane. You could build an absolute shrine, and it won't stop the spirit from moving forward. However, if the person is having trouble letting go of the loved one, because of the connection, the loved one quite often will choose to stick around. And it's not even in purgatory. Purgatory is a whole neat little place, but it is a it's a point where they stop before they even get to purgatory. But it's done by their choice. They're not actually held back, but they do choose to stay back because the person left behind is still that attached.
So, if a spirit doesn't know if they want to cross, and they don't know if they want to stay here, is purgatory kind of that place they go to wait, and then they decide, I'm going to go haunt the bakery, or I'm going to go ahead and cross?
Loading, please wait.
Basically, yes.
Okay.
Purgatory is a wonderful place to visit. A lot of people there.
Right. So purgatory is not the religious conception of what purgatory would be.
Not really. And personally, having been there more often than I care to count this lifetime alone, basically, purgatory is the transitional point between this life and the next life, where you decide. Now, do understand, from purgatory, people do go to what they consider heaven or hell, depending on the individual. It's all set up nicely. But then they come back to purgatory. Once they've done their, if you will, stint in heaven or hell, they come back to purgatory to arrange for the next incarnation.
Okay.
It's kind of like the foyer to the afterlife.
Is there coffee there?
Hey, there we go.
If there's coffee, I'll be good.
Depends on
Coffee
which
and
way you
donuts. Say again, Cole?
Depends on which way you went. Which side you came in on. So one side of the room has coffee, the other side doesn't.
The other side's got iced
Or
tea.
one side has exceptionally great coffee, and the other side of the room has shitty, sucky coffee.
Yeah.
Tea.
That's kind of like when you walk into a bar, you know, one side of the room has the bar, the other side has the chairs. Get up and go to the other side and get the drink.
Right. All right. Keith, what's your first question?
Just pulling it up here so I can actually look at it.
All
Okay,
right.
we're going to go a little sideways on you from that standpoint.
Okay.
This one actually, you guys may have an answer to, but what is the link between the imagination and astral travel, and how can they benefit each other?
Ooh,
I have an answer for
I
that.
know this.
I believe that the imagination is practice for astral travel, and we just don't know it.
Yes.
Okay, go with yours, Megan.
Okay, so actually I'm going to go a little bit into an experience that I had just recently in astral. I am fairly new to astral. I've always had an artistic knack. Growing up, I was very artistic. I wouldn't say my imagination ran away, but having a kid and seeing how my daughter is so imaginative, I really have fed into that, and in astral, it has helped. Recently, I had a single residence that had 2 portals. One portal was in a closet. It was small. I hugged it. And I shrunk it down until it went away. The next portal was the entire room, wall to wall.
Can't hug
And
that
I
one.
immediately felt overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought outside of the box, and I said, I'm going to blast it with ice because I need to freeze the movement. So there's my imagination. You need to freeze things to stop them from moving. And I froze the entire room, and then I blasted it. And it was so pretty because, all these little ice crystals just formed in lines in front of me, and it rained down ice crystals when I blasted it. And then I was able to kind of sweep it up and done. I was done, and there was no mess. That is my imagination, inspired in part by my artistic side, but also with my daughter. She's very jovial and has a great imagination, and I can feed off that, and it really does help. I would say it is a precursor to astral. I would like to think I was very creative as a kid, but you can come up with anything in astral. I have an astral vacuum. I have a flamethrower.
An X-ray machine.
I'm like, I like to clean. Well, I'm not going to say I like to clean. Okay, but vacuums are handy. I'll say that. Vacuums are really handy. Flamethrower, that is the coolest thing ever. I have an ice wand. Yeah, you could think of anything, and as long as you can create it in your head, it can work in astral.
Kind of like
and
the Matrix.
I'm always amazed.
So
Yeah.
what imagination does, if you think of everything as energy, as it is, it's the imagination that makes the energy form, which is why it works. So, I'm trying to put my thoughts here into words.
Well, get all scientific about it.
There is scientific to it. So what the imagination does, though, along with the astral, is creates thought forms. And that's what brings things like Slender Man and other thought form methods into life, is the imagination, by forming energy.
Green Lantern Corps.
Yeah, exactly. So that is why imagination works with astral, because you're using your imagination to form it into energy, which makes it life. Good enough, Keith?
That's pretty much the way that we've always seen it. Essentially, the imagination is the key to the higher senses. What most people don't quite realize is that the imagination, and mankind does know how to do this instinctively, imagination has the capacity to physically manifest whatever you desire on this plane. The catch is that you're up against everybody's will on this plane, and therefore if people tell you that it's not possible to do something, the greater majority of people don't have the willpower to bypass that law or that belief structure.
Right. Excellent. So, Cole, what's your first question?
Okay. So I was watching a show. Don't hate me, Eric.
Zach Baggins.
We were watching.
I know it.
No, we were watching Ancient Aliens.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
That's a good
yay!
show. That's a good show.
So my mother-in-law has now went off on this full-wide tangent that the moon is not made of rock. It is full-out metal with a hardened shell, and it is an alien spaceship.
So, you know, there's some fact to that, in that back when I can't remember which Apollo landing it was, they actually dropped, I believe it was a lunar lander, on the moon, and it rang like a bell for an hour, showing that it was actually hollow. So yeah, there are some that think it's actually a satellite, an artificial satellite that was created by an ancient race and could possibly have been an alien craft. But it is an artificial orb.
But
Anyone
no,
want
she's
to add
saying
to
it's active. Like they're there now, and that is like with what Keith talks about with the Galactic Consortium.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
To her, that's where they are. They're that close.
The
That is one of
consortiums.
their locations, yes.
So
Say again?
like imagine, okay, think Star Wars. Okay? When they all meet in the Senate, and there's that big room where they're all in those little discs. That's what she thinks the inside looks like. Right?
That's
It's an
That's
interesting. The concept, not bad. The reality, not quite that clinical.
See?
Close, though.
The thing,
So-
see, intriguingly enough, from what we've discovered, is it hollow? Well, the answer is yes. Did it show up hollow? The answer is no. But the fact that it was here did provide a perfect location for redistribution. Net result, punch a hole in it, dig your way inside, set up home, and everything looks fine. But there have to be places where, as with the lunar landing, you don't get quite enough rock left on the surface.
Okay, so my question would be is if it is artificial object, whose is it and what are they doing?
Well, the object itself...
Well, no, like we've talked about different alien races, like it doesn't belong to the Greys, or are they the ones using it, or the
More to the
reptilians?
point, the consortium is the one that guides it, that governs the whole 9 yards, but there are multiple different races using it for, if you want to go back to the Starship, or to the Star Wars idea, and I forget what the name of the station was, but the one that Lando Calrissian ran,
Cloud
that's
City.
closer to the reality of it, inside. But it showed the object itself got here of its own accord. It was just capitalized when they found it.
Okay.
But also, if you go by the information we're getting from certain clients that we've been talking to, we actually have humans on the dark side of the moon in cages. And there are alien races on the dark side of the moon, and there are government agencies using the dark side of the moon for God knows what.
Essentially correct.
It's called the Secret Space Program.
It ain't that secret, by the way.
Not really.
Kind of like people
And not
going Area
anymore.
51 doesn't exist, but we'll shoot you if you come near it.
Yeah. He only said Space Force because we already actually have one. Obviously.
Yeah, for about the last 25, 30 years. They're just letting you know now.
Okay,
I
Michael.
wonder if that's because. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your first question?
Well, I got to thinking about like what you guys were talking about. How many new things have happened this year alone, winding down to the end of 2018. I thought I would ask whether anyone thinks that the mainstream media is going to make another step towards disclosure, like maybe the New York Times article last December. If there going to be another one of those kind of major step forwards before the end of the year?
Well, look at the...
Go ahead.
I'm going to say, look at, just what, last week or 2 weeks ago, wasn't it, that the Harvard scientists were talking about that cigar-shaped object that came into our galaxy.
Moa.
Yeah.
Yep.
You beat me to it.
Moa. And I
And
mean,
the
that
thing
was
is
huge.
beforehand,
Well,
they were saying before that they didn't believe it was spacecraft, and now they're saying, oh, it's spacecraft.
yeah, and you've got Harvard scientists coming out talking that.
I got
think
one.
I think that's a huge step. So, is it going to get more intense? I think so.
Regarding that point, as far as the ship that they've spotted, did they say whether or not it had windows or not?
No, they didn't. They think it had a wind sail.
It looks like a giant doobie flying through space.
It does. It's a perfect cigar.
Well, both of them look the same way. The reason I ask is because if it's got no window, it's Pleiadian. If it's got window, it's Rosasian.
And remind me again about Rosasians.
The Rosasians are your 7.5 to 8.5 foot reptilian. They're very military oriented. They are allies of Earth.
Okay.
Or more to the point, they're allies of humans.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Pleiadians are simply neutral healers.
Because isn't it the Tech Lex?
No windows.
Yeah, the Tech Lex are the ones looking for snack food.
Yep.
My answer to that question, I would have to say yes, I do believe that they're going to be talking more about it. But there is a big but here, and that is not before somebody over their shoulder waters it down. That's what I honestly think. I think it'll be watered down to a point where people don't panic about it, kind of like when you brace your kids for something bad that's going to happen in the family or bad that's going to happen in the household. They're trying to break it to the public as softly as they can so that it's soft enough that people like us, the listeners, paranormal enthusiasts alike, we have our antennas up and our feelers out, but it's also soft enough that you'll still have other news media organizations, cracking a joke. You can't really see an article or a story piece on the news, without a chuckle. Without a chuckle, somebody, they'll have the reporter, something strange was spotted in the sky. Oh, I wonder if there was little green men, Marv. And they try to downplay it, and it's really insulting.
Especially to the green men from Mars, because they're not little.
That's probably what they're doing. They're looking on the monitor. I ain't little.
Well, in all fairness, the Martokians, which come out of Mars, they are green. They absolutely are green, but they stand close to 6 feet tall. Now, if that's little, I want to know what they're comparing them to. Because they don't let the children from Mars come here without their parents.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably a good thing.
Probably, although it would be entertaining in our eyes.
So I wonder what they thought of that movie, Mars Attacks.
Oh my goodness.
I'm just saying.
I believe the correct term in human vernacular was why. Of course, in all fairness, a lot of the time they watch the movies and they watch the news and they go, well, they're about the same consistency.
Well, yeah, but so do we.
Actually,
Yeah, I think, really that's what's going to happen is anything they break down to us on the news, they're going to water it down to keep it, interesting enough for those of us who are in tune and still laughable for those who aren't.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot.
Well, it seems to me that things have been happening so fast in the last year or so with actual mainstream media talking about these things. Like you mentioned, that whole article about the Harvard astronomers even being included in the mainstream media is just a huge step forward. And the fact that this kind of stuff is coming down so quickly, I believe that the powers that be are trying to get ahead of the spin on something that they can't really control as far as disclosure goes. I think there's some kind of off-planet pressure potentially to disclose what reality is after all this millennia of us being under control of the powers that be. I think something is going to happen in the very near future to really throw it out there, and the massive paradigm shift is something that they're afraid of.
And that goes right into my first question: is seemingly UFOs and abductions are on the rise. Why and what's coming?
Well, I wonder, if they're close to, they're doing the disclosure stories, Eric, and stuff like that, and they're trying to make it more acceptable to us, putting our foot in the water, testing the water, like a duck testing the water, so to speak, then I think maybe they're on the rise, because I've always had this theory, and I've never presented it here. There's always the image of the UFO landing on the White House lawn and meeting with the president and take me to your leader and the whole nine, and either they help us out or they enslave us. But I wonder, too, because you guys talk about the consortium and how the aliens treat Earth as a resource, that maybe what's going to go on is, the people who are really bastardizing our resources are the governments, the EPA protections that are being taken away, animals that are going extinct and they're now allowed to be hunted again. They're really trying to hold down the use of solar energy. So I wonder if when the aliens come, the main reason they got everybody fearing, depending on which race lands, mind you, maybe our Keith can confirm this or refute it, but I wonder if they're going to land and they're going to tell the people, us, hey, you are being held down. We see what's going on with the resources. Your governments are poisoning you. They are poisoning your water systems. And we have a sun, which is renewable resource energy for you, and they are making you a slave to the planet by not letting you use it. And therefore comes our alien renaissance.
But let me bring this up real quick. They could have done that in 1952 when they buzzed the White House for a week straight with radar returns. They could have done that. Why didn't they? Why today?
Maybe it's a straw that broke the camel's back.
I have a small theory on that. Go ahead, Michael.
Well, I'm just thinking that there weren't enough alien hybrids born on the planet yet.
Exactly.
And that's a good point.
I'm thinking there's like the 100th monkey syndrome, where eventually consciousness is raised enough so that when the paradigm shift happens, when reality happens, that the human population can take it, can handle it. And of course, I believe we have, as a race, been tweaked many times in the past, even to get to the position we are as Homo sapiens sapiens. I mean, this is ridiculous when you look at the timeline of how old the Earth is and how short a period of time our present status of humans has been on the planet. The hominids have been around for millions and millions of years, but the people like us, Homo sapiens sapiens, have only been around a very, very short period of time. And it just flies in the face of any kind of evolutionary process that basically points to the fact that we must have been tweaked at some point to get us to this point so fast. So I'm wondering if the powers that be, the aliens off the planet, the consortium, whatever, basically know when the vibration is right to make that bold disclosure, if they're going to make it. And I believe that they will make it if our planet's power system does not do it first. I think they've probably been given the ultimatum to do it. That's why things are happening so fast.
Keith?
Good answer.
Well, number one, the aliens themselves are not, they're not predisposed to give an ultimatum to mankind. Mankind has to be left by, if you will, interstellar dictate, has to be left to evolve into whatever race it becomes. Although they are keeping an eye out to make absolutely certain that mankind doesn't destroy the planet itself in the process. Hence why nuclear war, when it was so close to going off, the nuclear warheads were shut down, but not the rest. Not the explosive side of it, just the nuclear side, because of the amount of fallout. That'll be the first issue.
So why would there be a big push for disclosure right now with mainstream media?
Well, because contrary to popular belief, shows like S4 are starting to gain momentum, and the listeners to S4 and shows like it are starting to push the media to start saying, hey, this really is a reality thing here. It's not just a fringe element. Okay, and of course, with the advent of the internet, more and more people are finding out about these things, so the mainstream media no longer has the cap on the information. They can't contain it. Net result, the mainstream, to stay mainstream, has to jump on the bandwagon, or what will happen is what used to be called mainstream will become the sideline as shows like S4 and stations along the same venue start moving into the reality of, if you will, what people today are calling future tech or scientific technologies.
Who's giving them the green light to bring it to the forefront, though?
Mankind.
Well, I don't think it's the government, which is...
No.
Which
you
is,
misunderstand. The general population is starting to get the idea that they're starting to voice the idea because of the advent of the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Mankind is starting to get in touch with people on the other side of the world, where the governments that be can no longer, and the media itself is no longer capable of containing all of the information that's getting out. It's kind of like a hole in the dam. You're not going to stay, if one hole gets popped, there's no problem, but the minute you get a dozen holes or so, you run out of fingers pretty quick.
Okay. And that makes sense. The other thing I want to bring up is, because we're actually coming to close to the top of the last hour here. I want to bring up one other point though, because what we're seeing, and I hate bringing up Rh negative because everyone jumps on, oh my God, Rh negative is alien, and it's really not. Rh negative is not even a blood type like some people like to say. But what we're seeing in the last 3, 4, or more cases with abductees is they are all Rh negative. So Rh negative is not an alien blood type, quote unquote, but is an abduction genetic factor in why they're taken, because they're harvesting things from these abductees. What is it they're harvesting, and why?
Well, the what, not having, this is where Markham would come in real convenient, because I don't have the scientific background to tell you the what, but the why is the easy part. When you take a look at the subquantum vibratory impact of where the actual information is stored on a triphasic base, they are pulling the information on certain aspects of societal interpretation of the hybridization program and the way that mankind is looking at it. And I do agree, and I forget which one of you mentioned it, that part of the holdup was they didn't have enough modern hybrids to have a wide enough database down here until recently.
Okay.
You know, there's been... I just wanted to mention there was a real interesting scientific study done by Dr. Roger Lear. He was the implant removal surgeon that did 17 patients and taking these isotopic ratio, metamaterials out of them that don't come from the galaxy here. So he did also a study of the statistics for new babies being born in the last 80 years, he says. You know, they take all sorts of statistics when a baby is born, head size, length, weight, and right. various tests about whether they can raise their head up and all those kinds of things. And he says that in the last 80 years, the statistics for human being babies has skyrocketed, has gone off the chart compared to the historic data that was available in the past before 80 years ago. It kind of lends to the, some credence to the fact that there is some tweaking going on here somehow, either through the DNA or whatever, that is creating a brand new humanoid on the planet.
Well,
there's
the information, as far as the data being recorded, you got to remember that if we start 80 years ago, that's about when they started really developing the tracking method that they're using today, and decided that all the extra measurements and all the extra tendencies needed to be written down in order to start looking at it.
Huh. Okay.
Because when you look at the concept of tweaking, the change in people over the last 80 years, as far as their mental acuity goes, has not climbed that far, nor has their immune system.
So what's the purpose of the hybrids that are here?
Now, that's the easy part. The whole hybridization program was built to grow cultural interpreters. You know what a universal interpreter is for language?
Right.
Okay. when you're using a computer to change a language, okay, what you're basically doing is you take the structure of the language you're working with, find a cross current to compare the words, and away you go. Well, the thing is, if you take Westerners and you want to talk about a coffee cup to somebody born in China, you have a basic concept that if you're holding up a cup, you're holding up a cup. It may not be called the same thing, but it will be a cup. Okay? So if as a Westerner, you hold up a coffee cup and you hold it out to an Easterner and you have a smile on your face and you say anything, automatically they're going to assume you're offering whatever it is to them. When you are dealing with an off-worlder, you're not dealing with cultural compatibility. They may not know what you're hanging on to at all. Gene Roddenberry actually pointed it out very nicely. They've got no cultural reference. Therefore, by building the hybridization program, since the cultural tendencies are built into the DNA, you take the cultural tendency from one race, combine it with the other race, and what you have born is something that will understand the cultural inference from both races. Net result, you can actually train them to talk. Gives you a way of making a communication. The best example of it really is people that learn sign language.
Okay,
if you don't know how to speak, pardon?
The cultural communicative bridge.
Bingo.
Yeah,
That's the whole purpose.
Megan, you got more to add?
Uh-oh.
Me? No, I'm no. No, I'm good. I'm enthralled. I'm learning.
Yeah,
but
we've had three. Well, our last three abduction cases have been quite intense and quite.
Do we want to go into that?
We're not going through this show. We'll be talking about that next week on the team show. A lot more.
Can I say one thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Cole had something.
So with your, with Michael's question about disclosure. So with that, if you think, we've talked a lot about the Greys, and from my understanding of what you guys have talked about, they are basically scientists. Now, if the human race, if we are being studied, we are literally a science experiment. If that science experiment, when you're doing any kind of experiment, as you get towards a breakthrough in that experiment, you tend to do more tests, more things, and so it makes sense that abductions, that type of thing, incidents would escalate.
Well, I have one question for you.
Okay.
With what you just said, are tigers a human experiment?
In some ways, yes, they have been in the past.
Well, they are being studied, but are humans, as far as you're aware, modifying tigers?
Yes, they are.
It's a
They're
theory
doing
out
genetic
there.
manipulation on them?
That's a theory. Maybe not tigers themselves, but other animals.
Well, the reason I ask is this.
Dinosaurs.
The reason I ask is this. The fact they're being studied doesn't necessarily make them an experiment, as most people are likely to be looking at an experiment. And that's the thing that we've got to stay away from, or at least it would be recommended.
Okay. But what I'm saying is, like, if they're coming to a breakthrough where it's cause and reaction, so our technology, if we are coming to a breakthrough with our technology, whereas we can actually discover a way of true disclosure as it would be, then it would make sense that they are trying to gain as much knowledge from what they are doing beforehand. And it would make sense that the government is feeding information to the mainstream media slowly but surely, so that when it comes down to it, if there ever is true disclosure, they can actually say, hey, no, we actually told you this 2 years ago. You just
and that I would agree with. There's no doubt that they are increasing that they're increasing the data transference, if you will, as a preparatory maneuver. It's also very, very correct as far as the increase goes in some cases regarding the xenosocioeconomic alteration that's taking place on the planet right now. From an off-worlder standpoint, this is an extremely exciting time, scientifically.
Well, and I'm going to add, when it comes to disclosure, 2 movies that are coming out, well, one's already out, is UFO, and definitely a must-see if you haven't seen it yet. And the other is Blue Book, which I know Michael went to the premiere showing of it here, Thursday night. And those are probably the 2 best for disclosure that you're going to see coming out at the end of the year. And so you're talking about something going to happen at the end of the year that's going to blow things up. You got 2 excellent movies right there that are pretty valid.
Yeah. Matter of fact, maybe I should at least make an announcement about this Project Blue Book History Channel television series that's coming out. It'll be the first premiere episode on television will be January 8th. At 10 p.m. That's both East Coast and West Coast time. So UFOI team's going to get together and watch it ourselves together just to kind of debrief again. But man, that was a major event that they held downtown Seattle on Thursday night for the sneak preview premiere of the Project Blue Book. And the money and the production value for this brand new show is astonishing. Matter of fact, one of my thoughts during the whole production was, whether this History Channel project is part of an actual disclosure, event itself, because it's major. It's going into all the U.S. Air Force studying UFOs from 52 to 1969.
Yeah, and today. But yeah, we know they are. Anyway, it's time for our break at the top of the hour. When we come back, we'll continue with our roundtable. So stay tuned for hour 2 of S4.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Times are changing. The circus of politics, healthcare's low standards and high prices, and let's not forget food quality. What to do? Arm yourself with Life Change Tea at GetTheTea.com. In a world of chemical imbalance and poor air and water quality, it's time you make a move. Log on to GetTheTea.com and stock up on organic non-GMO supplements. Don't forget the tea. Cleansing your body never felt so good. And we have a brand new tea called Takedown Tea, which helps support healthy glucose. All natural body support so you can be at your best, naturally. All you have to do is log on to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. We're not a fad that comes and goes. We are the real deal. Join us and armor up. GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Changing America's health one tea bag at a time.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Poor water quality is a major health issue, and it's only getting worse. Municipalities can't keep up, standards have dropped, and pollutants are increasing. Where does it all end? It ends by keeping the pollutants outside of your home with HydroCare's advanced systems available at Wave Home Solutions. No less than the best purification materials and processes have been developed by HydroCare to provide you with healthy, clean water for drinking, cooking, and showering. HydroCare far surpasses the competition in removing chlorine, odors, iron, lead, chemicals, limescale, and much more. Don't settle for less when it comes to your water. We'll take care of the toughest water problems for you, whether it's from a city or well source. Satisfaction guaranteed. For more information, call 888-997-WAVE. That's 888-997-WAVE. Or go to bestwater123.com. That's bestwater123.com.
Wave Home Solutions for a healthy, comfortable home.
Do you want to lose weight but have no idea where to begin? The Fast Start Diet, a 3-day weight loss plan, is the answer. 3 days of nutritionally balanced, calorie-restricted meals delivered right to your door. No shopping, no measuring, and no cooking. Everything is prepared for you and ready to eat at home or on the go. The Fast Start Diet has all the amazing benefits of intermittent fasting without starving. We've helped thousands of people who have struggled to reach their weight loss goals. Isn't it time we helped you? With the Fast Start Diet, you'll lose weight and feel great.
Find us on Amazon or go to faststartdiet.com and use promo code POWER to get $10 off your first box. As a special bonus, we will include our #1 rated Lipo3 appetite suppressant spray free with your order. Whatever your diet plans are, start with us at faststartdiet.com and use promo code POWER.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now for a special radio offer from Angioprim. That's angioprim.com/radio. ANGIOPRIM. Angioprim.com/radio or call 877-882-7221. That's 877-882-7221.
Balance of Nature's fruits and veggies in a capsule.
It's a great product. And the one thing I liked about it the most is that when you open the bottles, you can smell like the scent of the fruits and veggies. It's no genius thing to it. It's really just fruits and veggies, which everyone needs. And you guys kind of put it in a way where you can take it easy and you can get it, and it's natural, and that's what I like about it. You know, I like the product, and I've taken it, and it's definitely made me feel a lot better. You know, I'm a healthy person to begin with, but it's definitely good prevention, and it's definitely gives me energy, and I feel like it's a natural thing. I like it. I really do.
For a limited time, use discount code TALK to receive a 50% discount on your first preferred whole health system and have it shipped to you free. Call 1-800-246-8751 or go online to balanceofnature.com. Again, use discount code TALK.
Welcome back to S4. Tonight's our November Roundtable. Hope y'all are enjoying tonight's discussion. You can always find the archives at our Spreaker site and on the S4 YouTube channel for all the shows you missed in the last 2 years. Anyway, back to the show. So I want to start right off with a question from Kayla. Going back to our discussion before the break, could it be at the race that is harvesting is dying, and they're trying to find a cure like we do with stem cells?
Well, technically the answer is yes, it could be. From everything I've picked up and everything I've talked to them about, they're not. But technically it could be.
And from my research from back in the 90s to now, a lot of it has to do with emotion, because emotion is a very intense energy. So could it be that they're just trying to get emotion into their race?
Well, again, when we throw the term could, the answer is yeah, it could be.
Right.
The problem with putting emotions into a race that doesn't have them, especially putting human emotions into a race that doesn't have them, what happened, it would amount to giving and whatever you do, nobody that's in the military take offense to this, but take somebody that is trained to be the very best of the Marines or the very best of the Air Force or any one of the branches,
right?
Make them really mad and give them a lobotomy and see what happens to the reactions. Because you're talking about trying to instill emotions in somebody that has never experienced them and is geared for conflict.
That would suck.
Okay.
I got you.
You see where that could be a problem?
I do. So, Keith, what's your second question?
Let me just take a peek here. Okay. We keep talking about abductions and what the aliens are after and why they're doing it. Here's a flip around for you. What do you feel humans can learn from the fact of the alien abductions? What can humans learn potentially of the abductors via the abductees' responses?
That is a major study, I believe, that is going on right now with the powers that be. I spent some time, like everyone knows, with Grant Cameron in October, the famous Canadian ufologist. He was mentioning that there is a government program going on right now to study the brain patterns, brain waves of experiencers, UFO abductees and experiencers, because they believe they can learn something about the physiological changes in human abductees. So that's a fascinating question, Keith.
Yeah,
well, thank you.
You know, I'm wrapping my brain around it because honestly, the abductees that we're working with are terrified and traumatized. So what are they learning about their abductors? I don't think a whole lot. It depends on if you're talking about contactees versus abductors as well, or abductees as well. Because the contactees are having this wonderful experience and may be learning something about the off-world on that regard. Whereas the abductees, with the exception of a few, who have a soul contract, essentially, and don't mind the changes they're going through. So it's kind of a hard one to explain. It's a hard one to wrap around as well.
See, I find it fascinating simply because if you look at the reactions, even of the abductees, and don't get me wrong, I do feel for them. Been there, done that, got the ball cap. But when you take a look at the changes in their reactions and the data that you can get from the work that you yourself are doing, that S4 is doing, the Fourth Moon is doing, the information and the data that can be drawn back from that can tell you a staggering amount about the culture of the abductors, simply by cross-correlating the amount of information you get.
Well, it's hard to get the information, other than we may be changing up some of our protocols, especially in light of some events that we're dealing with, in that we may try to interact more with the abductors.
That could be fascinating. Just be careful who you join for dinner.
Yeah. And, you know, then you also have the other end of it is, do you actually believe what they tell you? Because some races are very deceptive.
Well, and that I agree with. I like the way it was put to me one day, where where it was put to me, we were talking about an issue that you weren't getting definitive physical quantifiable evidence, and it was put to me that that when you're dealing with that situation, you look at circumstantial evidence. And when you have a preponderance of circumstantial evidence, that is what the courts use to determine guilt or innocence when they don't have an actual body handy or an actual item handy. They look at the circumstance. So if you have enough of a database, the circumstantial evidence will at least give you a working theory.
Okay, and that makes sense. You pull all the data and all the information. And okay, so Skype's messing up. But yeah, you pull all your data and all the information you're getting from the abductees and compare it and look for patterns.
Exactly. You know, and of course you just simply you put it all together, but you keep your eye open for that one piece that derails the theory.
Gotcha. So, Seth, are you still with us? I don't think he is. So, Megan, go ahead and ask your next question.
Okay, actually, I have a throwback to Kayla's question. When I was doing some research for the Agenda 21 and the Agenda 30, I actually came across a very unique, you guys are kind of probably just like, what? So I'll explain it thoroughly. There was a very unique experiment conducted between 1952 and 1970, and it was called Mouse Utopia experiment. And it was funded by the Rockefellers, but it was conducted under the, I guess the head guy there was Dr. Calhoun, who for NIMH. And basically, he started out with 36 rats, and he let them overpopulate on purpose. Okay, so I'm going to tie this back into Kayla's for a very specific reason. Kayla's question. So basically, overpopulation led to violence, dumbing down of the rat population, and also no desire to reproduce. And he coined them the beautiful ones because they were very focused on their appearance and socialization. So back to her question, basically saying, you know, are alien races dying? Maybe they're not dying. Maybe the point of overpopulation has induced a lack of reproduction ability or a lack of desire, and therefore they're now rendered infertile. I'm just throwing that out there because if we can fast forward to current times, not this test that was conducted back in the 50s and 70s. Right now, Japan is facing like a 1 in 4 fertility deficit. 4 women of Japanese origin are unable to reproduce because of fertility. Is that genetic manipulation? I'm not sure. Is it something to where they do not reproduce because they are aware that the population, you can't expand an island. You cannot expand an island except for up, which they have done. Japan is very overpopulated, and we are also seeing high increases in infertility here in the U.S. as well as Europe. So maybe there is a link with fertility rates in alien races. So cognizant awareness of overpopulation might cause us to subconsciously be rendered infertile.
Possible. The one thing I do point out where it comes to the human race and certain areas, genetically that makes total sense. When you're looking at off-worlders, there's an awful pile of planets out there that can either be utilized or can be terraformed to make them functional. Not to mention, they've got, let's face it, they're already traveling interstellar. You need a place to live. You can build another ship.
Exactly.
So I can't see the population problem being causing infertility for the off-worlders, although it makes total sense for modern man in certain locations. But do understand, I doubt that's an issue of becoming infertile, as in they can never change, so much as just simply stopping to produce the necessary components, kind of like shutting a factory down.
Yes.
I'm just thinking, do you remember a few years ago when it came up on Facebook and it was a thing about zoologists were asking people to dress up as pandas and have sex and make videos of it?
Pandas are huge.
So would that work with aliens, you think?
Right?
Probably not.
Cole? No, I was on a panda kick the other day. I was like, what do you think we're doing to pandas? We're doing this to pandas. Like, I went off on a panda tangent. What I did. And yes, that is exactly because pandas have no desire to reproduce.
But that's supposedly that could help too.
Well, their environment has depleted, and now the only hope for them is within zoos. So yeah, somebody gets in a panda costume and does this little crazy dance, hey. I'm not sure. I don't know how pandas think.
No.
I have zero insight on that. But I did go off on a panda tangent, and I still have zero answers. I'm sorry. Can I ask my question now?
Of course you can.
Okay, so my question is about the Aurora Project. I myself have witnessed what I believe to be Aurora. And it was daylight scenario where a black Dorito chip flew over my house, followed by 2 F-18s. This black Dorito had a force field-like whirl around it, and it outpaced these F-18s monumentally.
Was that here?
I'm wondering.
Where'd that happen?
That was here. That was here about 18 months ago.
Where's here?
13 to 18 months ago, and it flew directly over my location in, the Cascade foothills between Snohomish and Skagit County. And there was no sound with Aurora. The only sound I heard was the F-18s. I am a sky watcher to a fault. And I've worked on 18s. I know what my boys sound like. So I hear low elevation F-18 rumbling through the valley, and my eyes went to the sky, and I saw a black Dorito.
Megan, let me give you a little input from my experience on studying those things. The Aurora Project, the Aurora craft, supposedly a military craft, supposedly has this donut rope kind of contrail. So I don't know if the black Dorito or triangle kind of thing would have been an Aurora, but it sure could have been a TR-3B, which is supposedly military as well, and or it could just be, an off-world craft. In that same general area, the UFOI team last summer, we were at Mount Baker doing some stuff, and we have a report of low-flying FA-18s, 3 of them, chasing a large orange glowing circular object at low altitude.
Really?
This was like very low altitude over the town of Glacier, Washington.
Okay.
And
okay.
Matter of fact, it just it was silent. The glowing object, by the way, it was probably, if you looked at a FA-18, the object would have been 10 times larger than the FA-18 in perspective, just so you know. And
really?
And it was yes, and it was trailing some fiery, contrail behind it, but not a contrail that stayed there. It's just some fire behind the thing. And these FA-18s shook the town so badly, such low level, and I'm not talking much more than higher, just barely higher than treetop level. And everyone in the town woke up in the middle of the night when that thing happened, and that was last summer. So it's fascinating that you've had that report in that same general area. Interesting.
Exactly. So I did pull up an image of the TR-3B. That would qualify for a black flying Dorito. Except for the underside lights. What I saw didn't have exactly underside lighting that was illuminated at that time anyway. This was a daytime event. And yes, I totally, when you said donut type, that's what I meant by a whirring, like a whirl force field looking thing, because I didn't see it go by. I just saw it head over my tree line. So by the time that I ran outside, because I heard my birds coming, I ran outside. I am a plane brain to a fault. I get all excited when I hear a low elevation flyby. So I hear my birds rolling up the valley, run outside, and this black Dorito was already past my tree line. I mean, just in a split second. And I'm seeing this a whirl in its aftermath, like where the burners should be, like an afterburn effect, but it was centrifugal and concentric circle, and that's what I'm saying by like a force field. It looked like it had a blurred force field, and it wasn't vapor residue like a cloud. It was actually almost a heat type signature where I could see layers
like a heat
through
wave.
it. Yes, I could see layers of heat through it. So I'm curious, what did I see? I went to Aurora specifically, but Aurora almost lends to an SR-71 Black Hawk or Blackbird.
Yeah. Right.
I've
right.
seen those in person. I've sat in the cockpit. I'm telling you, that's not what I saw. I saw a flying Dorito chip.
Now, the Aurora Project, was it not developed in Area 51?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Actually, test flown there, actually.
Okay.
But Megan, I would like to ask you, being such a qualified observer as yourself,
thank you.
In the military, and working on these birds yourself, whether you thought you heard anything different than just the FA-18s going by. Was there any sound at all that you attributed to this other craft, the Flying Dorito, or was it just the FA-18s that you heard?
So what drew my attention were my boys, my F-18s, coming up, the valley. I could hear them for miles when they're doing a low elevation sweep. So I went outside, which took me less than 30 seconds. I'm standing in clear, open area, and I'm feeling a very heavy whomp, 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 whomp in my chest. Audibly, all I'm hearing is the F-18s trying to catch up. I did not hear any sound from, quote-unquote, my black flying Dorito. And
so, did you feel vibration, or did you hear a hum or anything of that nature?
Yeah, it was almost a hum, but it was more felt in my chest. I felt the reverberation coming from it more than I heard it, but it was almost high, or I guess a very low. It was a very low wom, 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 wom tone. And that is what caught my attention. And I said, I'm noting that forever. And my husband was so disappointed because by the time that he caught up to me, which was within a minute, it was gone. There was no trace, no trail. There was no chemtrail, contrail, any type of trace. The F-18s, you could still hear thundering further on down the valley, but he has faith in my descriptions, and he knows I know my planes. And so for me, just to throw my hands up in the air, and I said, it looked like a freaking black Dorito chip. He didn't know what to say to me, but he believed me.
What would your opinion be on the perspective size of this triangle compared to the jets?
It was about a half size bigger than the actual FA-18. And actually, I believe that what flies around here is what's deemed a growler. It is the Delta or Echo series of an FA-18. So it's a graduated, but the size really has not changed. I mean, we are talking mere inches. So it was half the size, half times the full size of, it was in the ballpark of the F-18. However, it wasn't double the size, it was about half, 1.5 size, the actual plane. And I'm very familiar with my F-18s.
What would have that wingspan have been then if it was 1.5 size the jet?
Just around 20 feet, span to span, but because it had the triangular shape.
Yeah.
So I would say it was low. It was low. It was within 500 feet of the ground. I got a very clear view of it, and this was a very interesting time, too, because the Oto slide had just happened. Kind of thing. And we had a lot of Army Corps of Engineers type activity in the area. They were rebuilding a jetty. So for me to go out and witness this craft and then try to pinpoint it utilizing Google, all I could come up with was Aurora. I could not go any further, and then my frustrations won, and I gave up on the search, but that has always been a mental image for me. But the wingspan itself, being that it was 500 feet off the ground, was probably between 20 and 24 feet wide at the broadest.
Very good observation. This is fascinating stuff for a ufologist.
Excellent.
Actually have someone like yourself.
Curiosity.
Oh, I can draw it.
Yeah, that's going to help on radio.
Right. I'm sorry. I'm sending you a mental image right now.
Curiosity, though, if the UFO was, if the, as you call it, Dorito was that wide, that broad, what, roughly speaking, and I'm betting you've got a more than rough guesstimate, but of the, you called it the S-18?
Yes.
What is its broadest point?
About 22 feet, depending on the aperture of the wings. So it usually they're about 19 feet spread across, but depending on the platform and the wing aperture, it can be up to 22 feet. So it was broader than the F-18.
Yeah, but not by much.
No, not by much. Not by much, but it did have a beat in length and thickness, which is weird. And there was no horizontal stabilizer. There was no identifiable wings with this thing. It looked like a flying Dorito.
There wouldn't have to be. If they're using the drive I suspect they're using, you wouldn't need a stabilizer.
So which race would have this kind of craft?
Us. Sorry.
Megan, do you suppose it was an equilateral triangle, or was it more of a delta shape object?
Oh, I would totally have to research that because I am not familiar with your terms. I'm sorry. So it was longer in the front than it was wider.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. So in other words, more like an arrow than it was a triangle.
Perfect. Yeah, but it essentially, at the speed it was going, it looked like a triangle to me. And, you know, Doritos are a little bit longer than they are wider, so...
Okay. All right. Well, that's close to equilateral. In other words, every side being about the same length. But you're saying that there was definitely a front to it. It sounds like.
Yes. Yes, and the point was to the front. It wasn't like spinning or circulating or anything. The point in the front was actually like driving the Dorito.
I like Trippin's question in the chat room here in Freezer, because he's asking if there were any ships coming back, any units coming back to the, as it were, Dorito, from the direction it was heading to, as in somebody coming in on an intercept course, from my gather.
Oh, you know what's funny? Okay, so I did not see any additional craft other than the tailing F-18s. However, within an hour, there was a Black Hawk helicopter that came and circled our entire area because it took him about 15 minutes to go out of earshot after I viewed him crossing the south side of my property. And, you know, Black Hawks have a certain prop wash sound, and so he went out of earshot, and then about 30 minutes later he came back up the north side of the ridge, because I'm in a very narrow valley. It's probably about 12 miles wide right here where I'm at, so you can hear aircraft. And he started to come up the north side of the ridge, and yes, it was the same black helicopter, same Black Hawk, and you could hear the prop wash, and he was the only one but it was like he was doing a secondary sweep. But no, I never saw any additional aircraft that actually merged or joined or intercepted. Because, I mean, I'm kind of up higher in the valley, and I've got a lot of trees. So I've got about a mile, less than a mile,
and Megan,
of visibility. Yeah.
Trippin is asking if you have either flight radar or flight tracker app on your cell. And she says if you don't, you do need them to check for the future.
I would love to know about that because I have a air traffic control that I can listen to, but that doesn't tell me everything that's right above me. So I would love that because I kid you not, I get serious military aircraft up and down my valley all hours of the day. Surprisingly not today, but like yesterday, I could count 10 instances where I had military aircraft.
Oh, I need to get you. I need to get you caught up because we actually discussed that at training, but you were late.
Oh, military aircraft over my house? You guys discussed that?
No, flight radar, flight tracker.
Yeah, but
Dang
obviously,
it. Okay.
Those flight radar trackers, they're not going to be showing military craft. They're not going to show the transponders in that regard. They only show commercial airlines and, you know, the things that they want you to be able to track. But Megan, I have a fascinating story for you, Megan. It's right up your alley with a Black Hawk helicopter. You're not going to believe this, but in the same town of Glacier, Washington, like I said, the UFOI team goes up to Glacier, this certain area, you know, Artist Point, the Pallades Mountain there, you know, next to Mount Baker, for a Skywatch, you know, investigation every summer. So for the last 5 years, we've been going there. But we heard a story 3 years ago from a Harley-Davidson biker who was coming home out of town into Glacier, Washington at about midnight, totally dark. This is a summer day, by the way. And he's coming down the road, heading into town. All of a sudden, from behind him, he says, comes a glowing pyramid, not a triangle, but a pyramid-shaped, massive craft. Yes, glowing orange, golden actually, and flying down the highway. This would be 542 heading into Glacier. And then it passed in front of him and then took a left and hovered over the Nooksack River. Now, he's dumbfounded. He gets off his bike. Yes, he gets off his bike, and he hides in the trees next to the river, and he watches this thing lower these glowing tentacles down from the bottom flat portion of the pyramid into the Nooksack River and starts, what he says, slurping water from the river. He looks around to try to find anybody, any other traffic going by that could witness this with him, and no one is there at all. So eventually, he says, what happened after about 2 minutes of this craft just hovering over the river, it withdrew the tentacles back into the craft and started moving very slowly down the Nooksack River and going away. When all of a sudden, he says, 2 Black Hawk helicopters come out of the middle of nowhere down the river and start chasing this thing. This thing then took off, and he said covered the distance between Glacier and Mount Baker, a distance that he thought was about 10 miles in like 2 seconds, he said. And the helicopters had no clue, could not even attempt to catch up with it. But there you go. There's another instance of these helicopters showing up out of the middle of nowhere with some kind of knowledge of what's going on.
Exactly. No, that is fascinating. And I mean, when you said river, I kind of like perked up. I live 100 feet from the river.
There you go. Wonderful. Yeah.
All right. Let's get one more question in before we have to wrap up the show. Cole, what's your second question?
Well, my question would be, is as a paranormal response team, when we see alien race who's coming to this earth doing an experiment, or anything that abducting is what I'm asking, I guess, that affects our abductees in a negative way, for anyone out there that has any inkling that they have been abducted, what is the best advice we can give them other than to contact us immediately? What is the best idea or advice we can give them to help keep themselves calm?
Well, one, what calms a lot of them down, because we've been doing this before we discovered we could stop these things, is let them know they weren't alone, and that they're not crazy, and that it happens to many people. That puts some of their minds at ease. The second thing is document. Get pictures of marks you have. Keep a very detailed journal of everything that's going on. Other things we are going to try is the spiritual side, which includes grounding, includes shielding, includes getting their vibrations raised. Because some races can't come around if you have high vibrations, which means positivity. So, there's things you can do. That would be a beginning. You got anything to add, Megan?
So, I have found it that I like to give them insight. There was one case that I just worked. She basically, our client, basically wanted to know why they had chose her. I didn't have an exact answer. I felt bad I didn't have an exact answer, but the way that she viewed life and her possible heritage was an appealing factor to them. I tried communicating, and basically she was fully accepting of my answer. It wasn't the key that would unlock the door as to why, but it was enough of an answer that she could understand what I was trying to convey. I still kind of felt bad that I didn't have a 100% answer, but as long as the client was happy with the insight that I was able to provide her, she could move along. And that makes my job in astral, when dealing with these type of cases, a lot more, happier to deal with, better to deal with. There's a level of satisfaction in there that I can serve a client and possibly give them any type of insight. Insight's huge with any form of answer. Humans, I think, need answers.
Trust me on this one, they're not the only ones. However,
everybody has answers.
Yeah.
Everybody looks for answers, but the thing is trying to give anybody a definitive, this is why you were taken, unless you have access to the orders that said abductor is walking around with, you're not going to know specifically. I mean, let's face it, anybody that's ever worked for somebody else or been in the military especially knows what it's like to get orders without being told why. Go do this, okay? And away you go. Humans just happen to be one of the rare races that actually goes, why? Most of them just take the order and run with it. And that was the cat saying hello.
It wasn't my cat.
Oh, you heard my cat?
Yeah.
Sorry,
Loud and
she's
clear.
loud. She's loud.
So, Keith, do you have any input as far as what to tell abductees to ease their mind?
Well, the one point that you made as far as document the whole 9 yards in every way they can think of is absolutely imperative. The other thing to get them to do is, I think the best thing is find somebody to talk to, whether it's you guys, whether it's a stranger, whether it's a friend, even if they think that even if you're going to talk to somebody that looks at you as though you're nuts, the process, as long as they're not clinical psychologists or psychiatrists ready to lock you up, the act of verbalizing what you're seeing or what you're feeling does help settle the nerves.
That's true. And a cup of tea.
Yeah, and we're not going to go into what to put in the tea.
No.
But no, in all fairness, chamomile works really well as far as settling nerves without actually doing anything, shall we say, complicated. Chamomile or actually lavender works really well too.
It does. So, I do have another question. Which is more dangerous? The UFO field, the spirit field, or cryptids?
Well, I can give you a categorical on that one. There's no doubt at all from my standpoint that the spirit world is far more deadly than either of the other two combined.
In what way?
Well, the cryptids all have their own little odds and ends. Okay, like they've got their own little, venues. They've got their own little areas they work with. Like Ogopogo in the Okanagan Lake, or Nessie over in Loch Ness. They stay in their area. UFOs the different races have a definitive, here is your agenda. This is what you're doing. When you get into the spirit world, the ghosts don't exactly have a union. And considering some of them have the capacity for molecular recombination and disassociation, they can wipe things out in a heartbeat when you get the stronger ones.
Right.
Okay. And they don't care which one they're going after. If they're already mad, they're going to create a problem for you.
This is true. And Tripp's in the chat room saying us walking, talking apes or what everyone should worry about. And I think I would.
I agree.
Agree with that.
I agree.
Well, the walking, talking apes do have this propensity for pushing buttons just to see what happens, which, by the way, is not a good thing around a nuclear plant.
No. Michael, you got an opinion on which field's more dangerous?
Oh, I would agree that the spiritual world would definitely be more dangerous. The spirits and that kind of entity has equal access to everyone. Let's put it that way. You don't have to be have a certain blood type, DNA, RNA, right, or anything like that that some people say are the subject matter of the abductions. Cryptids like Bigfoot and those kind of things, as long as you stay out of a national forest, you're probably not going to run across them, or stay off the Olympic Peninsula. Let's put it that way, or up in your neck of the woods there, Whatcom County. Let's say that. But any person anywhere is going to be accessible to a spiritual entity good or bad. And matter of fact, I was fascinated to hear that the idea of practicing gratefulness and positivity is one of your better shielding and grounding techniques as well. I think that's something that we all should do on a general basis, just to help us get through our daily lives.
Well, yeah, and I agree with you. I personally agree with you there. I mean, it's a proven fact. If you sit down and you just sit in a park that's active and a lot of people going by, if you sit there looking mad, people leave you alone. If you smile, even the most nasty individual will look at you differently.
Agreed.
Yeah. I mean, and, for people that don't believe that, try walking into a place in a real grumpy mood. Be as foul as you decide, and I recommend keeping the law in mind in this case. See how people react to you, and then go in a really good mood, talking to people, smiling, greeting them, saying a simple good morning, and see what kind of a change you get in the way you're treated. The same thing happens with animals, with spirits, with other races. They all react the same way to the same thing.
Would
Good
agree
point.
with that. Megan.
Yes.
What do you
My
think?
input on that. Okay. So I've got two takes on it, because I deal largely with the spiritual in astral. I am confident I can go into a myriad of situations, and there's always a positive outcome, whichever way possible. I feel very confident in my spiritual astral abilities. However, aliens, due to their technologies, I am very leery about dealing with them. And then on the other hand, the cryptids. I've been doing a lot of research outside of task. I've been doing a lot of research as to lab-created cryptids. I've been researching Goatman and the purported lab-created, element that Goatman carries. Is there a difference in danger with lab-created cryptids versus naturally occurring cryptids? I've got a question. I've got a question to your question, because I'm wondering if there should be a heightened sense of awareness or quote unquote fear with a lab created cryptid versus a naturally occurring cryptid such as Bigfoot.
Well, I can think of one problem that would come up. If you take a naturally occurring one, the theory is that it has parents or a social structure, at least, that it grows up with. And at the very worst case, it grows up instinctively knowing how to interact on the planet. Mm-hmm. When you're talking about a vat job, they've got no reference, which means they don't know what's good, what's bad, what's right, what's wrong. They've got nothing to work with.
Okay, and through my research, I can confirm there are certain aspects about a lab-created cryptid that are very alarming because they have a target group and lore feeds it. So is that a, I'm sorry, Eric, what did you call it? A thought?
Thought form.
A thought form? Yeah. A thought form. So does thought form feed into a lab-created cryptid?
Possibly, and I could also see a lab-created cryptid being more aggressive, just based on the lab atmosphere.
In my research, I have found that yes, they are more aggressive. They do attack humans outright in its specific groups. and that's something we can discuss later too. But I love research. I love knowing things. And for me to stumble across this and I'm seeing patterns, I get a lot of questions. So even though you asked me a question, here I am, I'm asking questions back.
And that's fine.
Yeah, so let's put cryptids aside. But the alien technologies, if you deal with aliens, they have such a higher level of technology. What is the risk to human if you are combating aliens, or if you even simply engage them? Is the message of peace, coming in peace, necessary to actually have a confluent meeting with an alien race?
Well, I don't know about the message of peace being absolutely imperative to get a communication line going, but I can tell you this. If you shoot first and then ask if they're nice, the odds are they're not going to be happy.
Absolutely not.
But I think the message of peace is kind of out the window when they're harming and experimenting on humans.
Well,
but is it?
Not exactly. You understand, if you're a race and you're trying to figure out how to communicate, the only way you can do it is by picking them up. Now, don't get me wrong. If they're deliberately doing it just to hurt, yeah, that's going to cause a problem. But communication can't happen if you don't have a reference point to work with. Now, that said, I certainly understand the issue of where fear will come in one heck of a hurry.
Right. All right. So we are down to the last 3 minutes of the show. So, Keith, real quick, tell us how to find your books.
Well, the easiest way is literally contact me at innervoiceenterprises@yahoo.ca. Or, and I got to get back to this week, find me on my YouTube channel at R. Keith Andrews. And I'll have there's a lot of other ways to contact me through that. And of course, I presume if they contact you, you'll put them in touch with me.
Exactly. So, Keith, Michael, how do we find UFO I-Team?
Oh, thanks. Yeah, the UFO I-Team is always on Facebook. It's UFO and then a lowercase I and then capital team. And we live stream our meetings on Monday nights, 6 to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. They can always check us out. If you like us on Facebook, you can get automatically notified whenever we're going on a live stream. Or you can go to ufoiteam.com on the internet.
All right, sounds good. And as always, to find Forest Moon Paranormal, we're on Facebook. Just look for the group, and if you have paranormal issues, get a hold of us. So I want to thank our crew tonight, our Keith Andrews, our FMP Alien Race Specialist, and make sure you check out his 2 new books he's written and watch his YouTube channel. Cole Wegleitner, FMP Culture and Lower Research Specialist and owner of Statement of Sound DJ Services. Megan Gehring, our FMP Security Team and Astral Team in the Missing Persons Division. Michael Hall from UFO I-Team. And Seth Kinsey of Dark 30 and the S4 Conspiracy Specialist. So our music tonight came from the creative mind of Cole. Look forward to more new intros from him and Stephen Gill of Twisted Images, Twisted Studios Department for our closing music. As always, you can catch S4 on the Fringe FM every Saturday night at midnight Pacific Standard Time and KSVU 90.1 FM Saturdays from 10 to 12. So November 12th, we have our FMP team show. We'll be bringing the team in to discuss issues we've seen throughout the month and discuss issues as an emergency response team and how to approach and combat them. So thank you again, folks, for listening to S4. Keep your eyes to the skies. Remember, it's you, the listeners, that gives us a reason to produce S4. Have a great week.